Welcome everybody to DAT Poker Podcast episode. Is it episode 134? Ross, we seem to have a.
It is. Yeah,
here.
I don't know how you got an episode ahead, but
I got ahead somehow or another.
Now we're back at 134.
It was daylight savings.
Good to call back.
The daylight savings next week.
I'm your host, A. Schwartz, alongside producer extraordinaire Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Hey there.
With the Riley Martin drop. No Riley Martin this week.
That was you. I have been listening to a lot of Howard Stern though.
And Terrence Chan, T, how are you, sir?
Hello. Happy post Halloween Eve. We were having a little chat about Halloween. My kid, my kid's finally, I think, old enough to like properly really enjoy Halloween. I think so when she was 2, she's almost 5, she's 4 now. 2 was the COVID year, so that's not so much of a fun Halloween. 3, still a little scared of strangers. The idea that you would knock on a stranger's door, ask them for candy, have them give you candy and leave was still it was still a little bit antsy about that, but no, she was all in on it this year. Going up to the spookiest houses, the more like hanging corpses in the yard, the better. Super freaked out. Like I got freaked out by like an animatronic spider that I didn't think would move and just jumped out at me, and she was just digging it and loving it. But awesome. But yeah, no, Halloween was fantastic. So it's I think like I don't know what it's like to have 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids, but I think like this is close to like peak Halloween age.
I used to live in a block and a guy would dress up as Jason from Halloween. Well, we didn't know. He did it one year. He dressed up as Jason, got the full thing and an actual chainsaw, and he walked up and down firing it up and scaring the shit out of the kids.
Get you shot these days.
Yeah.
You're walking
the
around.
First year was scary. We knew it was coming the second year, but yeah, the first year was scary. Daniel, in the new house, did you get any trick-or-treaters in Las Vegas there?
Yeah, so we're in a different neighborhood, a lot of kids. It's a very lively area. I live in a gated community. Typically, that's not many kids, but here are so many kids. But we decided to turn the lights out because I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. I was looking for, the new fentanyl candy that comes in the colors and variety. Yeah. Like I tried to look everywhere because it's all the rage, right? I think I hear it all over the news, like fentanyl candy helps the kids relax and shit like that. Couldn't find no fentanyl candy. The best we could do was Skittles. And I was like, I don't know, the kids are going to be annoyed by that. So we just decided not to do that last night, but we did get some pumpkins. And you know what's funny? I should show you these fucking pumpkins because I told my sister to pick up some pumpkins, and she went to Whole Foods to get pumpkins first. And it's the ugliest fucking pumpkin I ever seen. It's like dusty, gray, whatever. And then, I was like, you know what? Get us some normal pumpkins because my wife, Amanda, she bought this kit, like Dexter fucking kit to carve a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
This is, she loves knives, which should scare me because in the middle of the night, sometimes if she's under the influence of some Ambien, I'm always worried.
You're going to get Lorena bobbited?
Yeah. But no, it's really, I'll tell you what, being in the new house, today was my first day noticing in my app, like a recovery that it's like very slowly, going up. It was like from the 20s to the 30s. I had a 40 yesterday. And then today I woke up with 79% on my recovery app, which is, letting me realize like, all right, we're getting there. I feel I can breathe without that, the feeling like the mold feeling. I don't know if you do, if you ever had it, but it's like when you breathe and you get to that top, you feel like a cough or something, and that's sort of dissipating. So I'm excited about going to Rosvidov and having a different type of chest pain from smoke.
Smoking. Nice. What's going on with the mold? Well, give us the update.
So I went over there today to check, and they've moved all the furniture. The furniture is kind of all, like all there. I saw they were working really hard on it. So I don't know. They said it would probably take them about a couple weeks, and then we get a contractor to fix up the place. Funny story. Well, not really, but a guy on Twitter, I tweeted about the mold, and a guy tweeted, and he was really upset. You could tell. Like, did you tell when you sold the house? Did you tell the new people there was mold? Right? And I was like, I sold my house. Like, I didn't know. But then I should have just trolled them and been like, yeah, I didn't want to tell them, so I just posted it on Twitter. Figured they wouldn't find it. You know what I mean? Like, I posted on Twitter, there's mold in my house, and this guy's, wait a minute. Did you sell the house and not disclose there's mold in it? Like, what the fuck, bro? How stupid. Although there are guys on Facebook who commit a crime and then they like show the cash and the gun. So maybe I'm that guy with mold. Like, yo, bitch, sold the house for 1.6. It's full of mold, bitches. What?
Kelowna, my fine town, made the front page of Reddit because these like white trash people stole the security camera from somebody's house and then started using the security camera in their own house while it's still connected to the internet.
Awesome. That's
Just like elite level criminal organization there. So that like the people who own the camera properly, they're just sitting there watching these people in the fucking living room with their own security camera.
Yeah, so I guess there's that. But I should have fucked with the guy a little bit more, but I didn't. But also speaking of that, I know we'll talk a little bit about this, but I started to utilize the Twitter function, which has been around for a bit, where you can decide if everyone can reply or you can decide people you follow. So like in the past, anytime I said even anything remotely political, like let's help poor people. I get Bob 679994432 replying with all, and then it's like 3 days of destroying my mentions, so I don't see anything I want to see. So having that filter, you get a lot less replies, but at least they're not like random anonymous trolls. So
but here's the problem. So we're going to talk about it, I know, with Twitter, but now random anonymous troll who's giving you a hard time about selling your house to somebody without telling them there's mold now can pay $20 a month or whatever the fuck it's going to be and be amplified, right? So now,
but here's the thing though, right? Well, and we'll get to it, but like now they're actually paying a penalty for this, right? Like they're like
care.
When you think of bot farms, that can. Well, let's hold this to the end because it's an interesting topic. So let's move on from that.
You mentioned Roswell, you're heading off there. When are you leaving? Tuesday, Thursday?
I'm gonna leave on Friday. I looked at the schedule and I don't know, it was a cockamamie thing, and I realized I'm gonna miss a 10K PLO, which I would have liked to get there for, but I'll be there for a 5K PLO first, after some jet lag, and then there's some 100Ks. Like I'm not going there really for chasing gold. I'm really not. I mean, I am because I'll play the bracelet events, but there's some really big events, and I'm itching to play some high buy-ins. I feel like the meta is very good for me right now, and I think that's an underutilized aspect of poker that most people don't think about. So what is meta, right? A lot of people wouldn't even understand what that means, and it's essentially, the way the game is playing right now. Is it playing super aggressive? Is it playing passive? Like, what am I creating? How are people perceiving me? The meta has changed over the years. I remember in 2008, 2009, like the meta was 6 betting with ace 6 off, right? 5, and that meta changed, and the meta became a little more passive, a little more aggressive. So right now, I've created a meta when I'm at a table, as part of my limping strategy that's really good for me. So I want to strike while the iron is hot, play some big buy-ins, and finish the year strong.
Private plane?
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I was gonna ask you though. You sold off 25%, right, on pocket fives?
Yeah, we do that every time that I, for the most part. And I don't always do it, but we did like a package like we do for the World Series of Poker. Again, I charge no markup, and I, some people on Twitter saying, "Stop pretending this is an investment, Daniel." I'm like, okay, I will, but whatever. It's up to you. But yeah, we're gonna fire. And the reason I much prefer doing package versus buys. There's unlimited rebuys in these things, right? So I hate the idea of being on my third bullet, winning it, and people had a piece of that tournament and get nothing. So here, I'm gonna fire, guys, and sometimes if I'm short, I'm gonna get it in and try to get more chips or whatever. But you're in for all of it, that's what you're in for, and hopefully we turn a nice little profit for you, like we just did in the Super High Roller Bowl.
Yes.
I can't get over you're flying commercial to Europe.
Well, I'm flying first. Bed business or first, but yeah, what are you, crazy? That I don't mind. When you get a bed, it's totally fine. I got no problem with that. But on the rich scale, like on the life, we're looking at new houses tomorrow. Me and my wife, we've got a few appointments to look at some houses, and some of them are quite pricey. One in particular that we really like has 7 bedrooms that we will not be using for bedrooms. There's a whole wing. There's a basement. What I love about this place is it's got a game room. It's 2 floors. There's a basement. The game room is unbelievable. It's perfect I have a golf simulator in my house, but it's up in the corner of the house. It's not a fun place to hang out. You hit a shot. It's not a place to have drinks like Topgolf. What I want to create now is the golf simulator there, some couches, the bars here, pool table, game room, fun. You can watch big games on that screen and all that kind of stuff. So really like the layout of this place, but this one is going to cost me 10 ball if we buy it. So
Did you guys ever Did you guys ever see when Barry Schulman sold his house? Barry and Alan Schulman sold their house.
Yeah,
This was like in the Review Journal, and oh my god! Like I'm not here to crap on anybody's taste, but if you happen to be listening to this or watching this online, or Ross, maybe you can pull it up real fast. The pictures of Barry and Alan Schulman's house, it was like just the gold plated handrails and like the chandeliers with it. This is like I feel like this is like the anti Daniel house. Like there was no really cool game room
Like
in the Barry Schulman house,
Trump
but it's
built?
probably like 3 times more than the one you're buying.
The house that Trump built. No, ours is like modern, sleek design, you know, black and white base. It's really like, and my wife loves that. She loves clean, you know, whatever.
Good time to buy a house. I mean, you're not competing against too many people.
Yeah, no. So then the question is, yeah, $10 million home. Obviously, no one's ever lived in it. That's big. I've never bought a house that expensive. The house that I own now is probably worth about 1.6, if that. But I figure, you know what? There's something to be said about, you know, we're newly married. It's been 3 years. But for a woman or any partner, when you move into somebody else's house, there's less of a feeling of it's my home. You know, it's like Daniel's home that I've moved into and crypt my style on, rather than kind of starting from scratch and we build something together, you know, in terms of the decor and everything along those lines. So I think it'd be good for both of us just to have that.
You need a good housekeeper. That many bedrooms and that much, you're going to need a good housekeeper.
Well, we have a housekeeper. She's going to want to raise, that's for sure. And that's okay.
Sounds like she's going to be dusting those bedrooms a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Has Eddie picked out his room yet?
A buddy of ours, Andy, was like, you know, he says, I'm moving into the wing. Because there is the whole wing of the house, which is separate, has its own entrance. And all. It's obviously a sick home, right? You're not going to look at a $10 million home. In the
10 million in Vegas too, right? Like 10 million, you know, 10 million in some cities, not 10 million Toronto. It's a nice home, but it's like 10 million in Vegas is a nice home.
I'll send you guys, if you're bored later, I'll send you the link to the virtual tour. It's pretty snazzy.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a Hustler Casino Live update for this week. There is no update. I think we're kind of done with until anything comes out with proves cheating or anything like that. I think we can.
Brian's on the run. That's they haven't caught Brian yet. I thought that was interesting. They're trying to arrest him and they can't find him.
I mean, I guess he'll apparently he's turning himself. Whatever. I mean, until we have something, I think we can all probably.
I heard there was a rumor that this guy Brian has been yelling, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Is that not the guy? It's a different guy.
Oh boy. RIP YouTube comments now. Fuck.
I grew up in the Lower Mainland, right? Or actually up the Sunshine Coast or something. That's busy, dude. Yeah. Anyways, but we do have something from Hustler Casino Live, and that's a hand that was played on the stream between Bill Klein, the old owner of the Treasure Island. Does he still own the Treasure Island? Do we know? I can't remember. And Brian Kim, poker player Brian Kim, who recently had a big score. And they're playing, I'm just going to do the hand history, guys, and then we can, if you guys want to stop me at any point here.
Why don't you go ahead and just call the action and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, because it's a fantastic hand. It's fun to watch. Bill is a really fun poker player to watch, Bill Klein, if you haven't watched him on streams, or seems like a really cool guy, just in there for fun. Obviously, the money's probably inconsequential to him.
Yeah, but you know what? Before we get into a little about Bill Klein, okay?
Yeah.
Bill Klein is the hero in that super high roller room, right? He is the hero. Anytime people start talking about wreck, whatever, I'm like, buddy, you wish you had Bill Klein's life, his class, his like what he's created. You know, he's got grandchildren, whatever. This is a guy, you know, he's made plenty of money where he goes to Shadow Creek, shoots a hole in one, right? Shadow Creek, watches the hockey games, comes to play the 25K high roller at Aria, 2 a.m. He wins the tournament, right? This is all one day in the life of Bill Klein, and this happened, right? Like, I mean, he's playing against all the wizards and all that kind of stuff. And like you said, you know, all the tournament winnings that he does win, he donates it to charity. Like, I find it, anytime poker players are like, this guy's such a fish. I'm like, bro, when you talk about being a fish at life, you have the wrong guy. Bill Klein is probably one of my favorite people that I've met. Like, I'm not a schmoozer. I really don't schmooze. I hate it. I feel uncomfortable. But Bill and I, we have a kindred fascination with hockey as well. So he's the guy that we talk hockey with, the Anaheim Ducks and stuff like that. And he's just such a good, like, whenever there's a moment, like we're playing the high rollers, where there's like a special day, whether it was 9/11 or whatever, Bill will stop the tournament. We all shut the fuck up. Bill takes his hat off and says something from the heart, so deep and patriotic and we all just feel like, wow, man, this is the guy we want to all aspire to be with. So just for context of who Bill Klein is, like a gangster, a hero, right? Because everyone's going to mock the line that he took here, but fuck, he's the gangster in this. Go ahead, Adam.
All right, so he's playing the Hustler Casino live. It is 100, 200, and Bill straddles for 400. Obviously, no limit hold'em. Brian opens in the hijack. He's on 133,000. He opens in the hijack to 1,000 with King of Hearts, King of Clubs. It folds to Bill in the straddle. Bill has him well covered. Bill has on about 300,000, and he wakes up with the Ace of Clubs, King of Spades. So he's got Ace King in the straddle. Obviously, this is a place where a lot of the reasons you're going to straddle is to play a big pot when you do have a big hand and wake up with one. But Bill, you're going to mix up your play a little bit. Bill decides to just flat the thousands in the straddle. So actually, yeah, let's ask about that first. Terrence, what's your thoughts on mixing up the re-raise flat here with Ace King to a hijack open?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is reasonably common in no limit hold'em these days, where you're playing fairly deep. To have hands like this, like Ace King is not. I think you can make it into a part of a 3-betting distribution and it's fine. But you just have to it's not limit hold'em, right? Like in limit hold'em, you just put more chips in the pot when you have Ace King, and it's like an easy hand to play. But it's not like playing Ace King out of position in no limit hold'em when the money's deep is like not so much fun all the time. So I think under repping with hands like Ace King, I think is certainly valuable in trying to play small pots.
Yeah, no, I was surprised that you went there, but coming from your limit hold'em background, that you actually got it right. And that Ace King's a 3-bet, right? Like if you look at what a solver is going to say, it's going to say that you 3-bet Ace King in this position. But as Terrence eloquently pointed out, when you're playing this deep out of position, it's nice to have Ace King in your calling range as well, so that you don't get just barreled on turns and stuff like that. So having some of your stronger hands in your range in the 2-bet pots allows you to defend with your range more like credibly on turns and rivers. And the other key point you put out, Ace King out of position is going to get called that deep by a lot. So you're going to have to make it really big. And then when you do, you're still going to get some hands like 6-7 suited, pocket 4s, pocket 5s, which are real trouble for you, right? Because Ace King, it's kind of a silly way to say it, but it is a drawing hand, right? You don't have a pair yet, right? So when you don't hit an ace or a king on the flop, and even sometimes when you do, and you play a big pot, you're in bad shape. Like if it comes ace 7 deuce, and you're getting action, like you have to really be worried about 7s and deuces, pocket 7s, pocket deuces, stuff like that, right? So it's not an easy hand to play. I like the disguising somewhat, especially for someone like Bill, right? Like for someone like Bill, it's going to scream, like ace king, aces, kings, queens. Like he's not 3-betting there enough with probably like 5-4 suited and things like that. So it really what it's going to do is it's going to play his hand face up too much in a big pot, out of position, really deep. So I agree with Terrence in that I think this is an exploit, right? Because GTO is going to 3-bet this, but I like it. I like having it in your flatting range.
So always flatting. Let's say you're Bill. What's your distribution there?
Well, you're going to mix. Obviously, listen, I'm a big believer in it being player dependent. Who is the initial raiser? How difficult are they to play against? Right? What is their perception of me? I think you're probably better off. No, I think you're probably better off if you're going to choose how to mix is 3-betting your ace king suiteds and maybe flat your ace king offs, because ace king suited you're going to hit a lot more flops where you can actually play a big pot, right? Where ace king off, you're playing a top pair type hand, but ace king suited now, like if it comes 8-4 deuce with two hearts, you can actually feel comfortable, barreling or getting it in.
Okay, so they get to the Bill flats again in the straddle, and they get to the flop, and there's 2,500 in the middle. The flop is 10, 5, 4 with 2 hearts, the 5, 4 of hearts. Again, Brian has kings with the king of hearts, and Bill has black ace king off. Bill checks. Brian bets 1,600 into 2,500. Bill calls. Pretty standard there, right, guys? Nothing really to see here.
I would say, solver or what? It's just, it's always, this is just like a basically slam dunk, always just call. Like it's no other sure, you could argue a raise, but it's not a good argument. So call is clearly the right play here.
Okay. So Bill calls the turn again, 10, 5, 4, 2 hearts in the flop. The turn's a 5. So it pairs the middle card, 10, 5, 5, 4. Now it's the 5 of diamonds. Bill checks. Brian bets 4,000 into 5,700, and Bill calls. Interesting call here. I don't know. What do you guys think of Bill Klein's check call here with ace king high here on the 10, 5, 5, 4 board? Terrence, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So if I'm going to guess at it, and again, I'm no limit hold'em specialist, but I think the 5 is actually like a pretty decent card. It's actually a pretty good card for you. So if you're going to peel on the flop, which as Daniel said you should, then there's no reason now to change. Now the problem you can get into here is if you don't have any slow plays, right? So like if you never have pocket aces here, if you never have a 5 here, if you never have pocket 10s here because you're always just raising, then you have a really big problem because you can get blasted off of so many rivers because your hand just looks like what it is, or maybe it's like pocket 9s or like 10-9 and stuff like that. So like if you're up against people who understand that you will not check call with big hands when it comes 10, 5, 5, 4, then you're going to get blasted off on the river. That's sort of my shitty analysis of it, but I'll let the actual person who plays No Limit talk about it.
Well, no, there's some really like in-depth solver ideas with this specific spot, right? So when you check call out of the blind and the middle card pairs, that card is way better for you almost always. So what a solver likes to do is a solver likes to bet it almost every time. And because it's betting it almost every time, it's betting like 10, 15%. So you're just essentially putting out a blocker, and you're doing this with whatever you call with 6, 8, a 10, ace, king, and stuff like that. One of the good things about, Bill's hand in particular is that he has ace, king without the heart, right? So that opens, there's a lot more hands like king, jack of hearts, king, queen of hearts, ace, high hearts that can be double barreling this turn. So the fact that he unblocks the hearts, that's very, very good for him. Now, as I said, a pro often is going to lead this card small. You'll see some pros now actually leading big there and really putting you to the test. But a solver typically, because it's betting it almost every single time, like literally like a pure lead for very, very small, that's the standard play. I remember arguing with somebody on Twitter saying, oh yeah, Bill would never check a trips or a full house there. I'm like, he would always bet. I'm like, actually a pro is way more likely to bet than a Rick. A pro under that study solver is way more likely to just like donk lead this turn for uber small with the entirety of their range. Now, I think the check call is good here again. Like it's too early to fold the hand, right? He has to see one more card come off, I think, with ace king. Plus, listen, if he's up against a 10, he probably has 6 outs and he's gonna have the best hand often enough. So I think the fact that he unblocks the flush draws and stuff, I like it. Call 4,000, no problem.
So let's say he's got the ace of hearts, king of spades there. Do you dislike the call a little bit more there?
Well, it becomes now like let's say, for example, if you're going to mix calling with ace king, right? You might choose to fold your ace king with a heart and then call with all your other ace kings. But I think overall, based on pot size or whatever, he's probably okay calling almost always with ace king in this spot. Like having ace king here is much better than having like 2 8s, right? So you have 2 8s, you're like, cool. Like I have a pair and that beats ace king. But the problem with 8s is to improve, you only have 2 outs. With ace king, theoretically against queens and jacks and a 10, you have maybe 6 outs, that are not necessarily pure. He could have ace 10, king 10, but it's a better hand to bluff catch with than 8s because you have more outs theoretically.
Okay, again, 10, 5, 5, 4 is the board after the turn. Bill again check calls. The river is the 5 of spades. So now it's 10, 5, 4, 5, 5. There's 13,700 in the pot. Now Bill leads. We were talking about him leading on the turn. He decides to lead on the river for full pot. He bets 13,000 into 13,700. Brian thinks for a while.
Well, let's just talk about this lead.
Okay,
we'll talk about each action. All right. I'll let Terrence go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think, despite what you said on the turn about leading when the second card pairs, I think when Bill's taken this line, I think the correct play is actually to check here. I think the standard theory play is to check here and probably call again, to be honest, when Brian bets. I think that's sort of the standard play, but Bill does not make the standard play. Am I right on this, that the theory would suggest this check call here because your hand is decently far up in its range?
I would
you took this line.
If we ran this, I would suggest a lead happens exactly 0% of the time after this line. Like there is no check call lead trips board. It's not a thing, right? It's just not a thing. It's not a thing that you do. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, okay, are you turning your hand into a bluff or are you value betting? And it's sort of like you're unclear here, right? Also, what's interesting here, and I think this will play into the next part, is he bets pot with this hand. So that would make you believe that like a pot size bet, it should be a 5, a 10 or better. And he doesn't have that. So it feels like for pot, like this is a bluff for him, but it's too good of a hand to be bluffing with. It's not the right type of hand to be bluffing with. You're much better off like bluffing with your worst hand. So let's say you had 6-7, where you block the 5-6 suited and the 6-7 suited, and you just, had a straight draw. That makes a little more sense if you're going to actually ever do that. But with the specific hand he has, he should never be bluffing here on this street, right? On this part of the action, on this node. But he chooses to go for pot. Bill does a little things goofy here and there. But I think the interesting the discussion comes up with the next play.
Yeah, just on this one though, I think back in a lot of my experience with casual players is out of position on the river. If they have the World's Fair, they don't want to ever risk it going check, right? So let's say Bill does have a 5 in this spot and he checks and, there's a check behind. He feels sick because he checked quads in the river or whatever, right? So I wonder how much Bill's image here leads into, and we'll get to it now, leads into this back and forth on the river. So again, Bill leads 13,000 full pot. Brian thinks for a while and raises to 50,000. So he only has 77,000 behind after raising 15,000. And Bill thinks for a bit and
hold on. Let's just talk about that play. Let's go play by play. Go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, I mean, so this is weird, right? So if you're Brian with pocket kings, you are targeting a 10. I mean, I don't think it's possible that Brian could put Bill on anything other than a 10 at this point. The question is Daniel pointed this out, and it's really salient, is that Bill potted it. Does he take this line potting it with a 10? That feels really strange. Like maybe he bets, but is it full pot? So when and the raise is very healthy. The raise is to 50K. Like that's really putting your opponent to the test. Like your opponent can like hero fold the 10 here, maybe. Like so Brian's play, I think, is really questionable. Like I understand why he did it. And to me as a limit hold'em guy, like I'm a thin value raise guy, but I feel like going this side, raising it all feels wrong to me. Raising to this size feels wrong to me. But I mean, if you were going to raise, I would think you would have to raise small if you really are targeting this 10. But again, the question is exploitively, how often, or in theory, how often does Bill pot it actually with a 10 here? And I can't say, I've never played with him, so I don't know. I don't know if Brian's ever played with him. So we get into this whole idea about theory versus playing the player. Do they have any sort of history at all? Like, because obviously, like Brian doesn't need to raise if Bill's bluffing. Brian's very high up in his range, right? Like he can beat everything except for pocket aces, pocket 10s, and a 5. Like he beats most things. So he's trying to extract value. But the thing is, are you able to extract value when you make it 37K more? I don't know if you can.
Okay, so this one's really interesting. I thought this is where it was really interesting because I saw Mike Matisow tweet, "This is what you get for raising this hand. You should never raise kings here," right? And usually Mike Matisow's, an idiot, for lack of a better term. Then Johnny Vibes chimes in and says, LOL, like to anyone thinking that anything but raise here is good, right? So both of these guys are thinking in pure absolutes, right? Where it's clearly a situation that is a little more situational. Having said that, I can't believe it, but Mikey's right and Johnny Vibes is horrendously wrong.
That means I'm right too, which is double amazing.
This is a punt. No, I'm saying this raise on the river, this is no disrespect to Brian. This is an absolute, unequivocal punt, right? Here's the thing. We talked about this a lot. When somebody makes a pot size or more bet, it's very polarizing, right? So they are saying, I'm nutted or I'm bluffing, okay? I'm nutted or I'm bluffing. So what is nutted in this spot? It's pocket aces, pocket 10s, and quads. You don't beat anything. You don't beat any of the hands that are nutted. None, right? Thin, maybe you beat queens and jacks. I don't think a 10, as we discussed, is really going to take this line, right? So now you ask yourself, do kings beat the midpoint of the calling range? No, because first of all the bluffs fold, right? And then you're literally targeting just the 10, which is very, very unlikely to make that pot size bet in this spot, right? So obviously, Brian doesn't think in a
Hang on.
years.
Can I stop you real quick, Daniel? You said all the bluffs fold, but clearly not all the bluffs fold.
I guess not all the bluffs fold. Some of them 3-bet.
Yeah.
Well, but again, this wasn't really a bluff. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. So it was a goofy thing, right? The point is, you're not getting called by the bluffs, Adam. So you're not like, so for you to value bet, you want to be called by worse.
Right.
That's not happening. He's not calling it off with ace king high, right?
Okay.
He's just going to fold that. So when you open up this raise against like what he perceives Bill, he's like, well, Bill will only jam here with quads, right? That's what he thinks, which is a fair assessment for the most part. But I think the deeper question is it worth, like the range you're trying to target, it's just a 10, right? Versus Bill has quads here. He can have quads, like you said earlier, Adam. Sometimes if they don't, amateurs don't want it to go check. So they want to get value and they make kind of a weird stutter step where they just lead out thinking the guy is going to check behind. So they bet pot. So this is a spot with kings. It's like, and again, it's pretty big size, as Terrence pointed out. This isn't like 13 to 30. This is 13 to 50. So you're asking for a 10 to make a hero call, after the line you played where you can have a 5 or anything like that. So way too thin in my regards here from Brian. But so again, I think that's the point. But the juiciest part of this hand comes next, which is where fucking gangster comes in.
So again, he makes it 50, keeping 77 behind. He's got 77 behind. And Brian makes it 50. And Bill thinks for a little bit and shoves, which is fantastic and fun and awesome and all the things that make watching high stakes poker on streams so much fun, right? This is why you watch it, for hands like this. And Bill just says, fuck it, I'm all in, and puts him to the test. To your point though, like what is he trying to, and Bill probably, I don't know that people give him credit. You'll have a much better idea than I will, Daniel, but he seems to be a very, very smart guy. So he's probably thinking in terms of ranges as well. And when he shoves, he's trying to probably exploit his tight image and say, okay, I've got quads or I've got pocket tens. And you can't beat either of those. So you just got more combination of pocket tens. I think he probably plays pocket tens.
No, he's not 3-betting tens there.
Oh, on the river. You don't think he is?
No.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So he's got quads, right? So he's
like Brian has his whole range, right? Like he's just gone raise, bet. Like there's no reason Brian can't have a 5. So
right. So so he shoves, has 77,000 left behind, tanks, uses some time chips, talks, and then folds. And Bill shows him the bluff, and it was a great moment on.
Well, let me ask you, Adam or Terrence, if you made the raise with kings and then he did jam, are you giving him 77,000 more in that spot?
I probably am folding. Like, to be perfectly honest, like the thing is, I have to be right 30% of the time. I don't think I'm right 30% of the time when, again, I've never played Bill Klein, but I like if you put all the information that we have, he's like a wealthy amateur poker player who likes to play, and I have no history of seeing real big, just put the balls on the table kind of plays. If I haven't seen it, I'm probably laying down to the old white dude who's just a wealthy businessman. I think if you, again, I wouldn't have made the raise, but if you magically transported me into that situation, I'm folding the hand. I don't think I'm good there 30% of the time or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I agree.
So the raise, going back to the raise just a bit. Now that raise, typically, in a tournament, for example, you lean towards not raising there and putting yourself in bad spots and conserving because of ICM and different things. And, you're not going for thin value quite as much. And the other thing too, you consider typically as your opponent, like you're not doing this as much against really gangster players, like guys like, Garrett, and the Phil Ivies of the world who are like, fuck this guy, he doesn't have a 5. Well, against Bill, I can see why you would want to do that more because you assume Bill would never do that. So here is where I think, like, if there's a award next year for Bluff of the Year, this one has to win. This one is so gangster. This is just Bill, like you said, putting his balls on the table, saying, I don't think this guy has a 5. A little bit of it might have been a timing tell because Michael took a very long time to raise that river. So Bill may have thought, I don't think this guy would have done that with a 5, right? So he's probably value raising thin. And it's me. I'm Bill Klein. So what Bill Klein's been better at is recognizing his image. Old Bill Klein, he's going to have it, whatever. So you've seen him opening up his game. And I think he mentioned, his kids telling him, like, you got to bluff more, Dad. And he's going to pick some weird, goofy spots now. So Bill Klein now becomes a guy where like Garrett and all these others, for a different reason, you got to be wary of making these plays because he might put his balls on the table and put you in a really bad spot. So you have to weigh how much value is there in this raise, or am I going to value cut myself and get called by aces and tens and a 5? Versus also, am I going to be putting 50 in and then folding to 77 and getting fucking bluffed off the hand? Now Bill has that in him, so players should be more wary about raising a type of player like that. I don't think Brian went in there assuming Bill had that in him, but the fact that he did, and the fact that Bill did it, right? Forget about the fact that he can afford it or whatever. He's trying to win. He's trying to do his best. I'll take the hat off, and I hope that if there is an award this year, I'm voting. I know I'm voting for Bill Klein on this bluff of the year.
We talk a lot on this show when we talk about hands about the value of GTO and the value of exploiting people. And I think this is just a fantastic example of that, because if you look at the way that Brian's played this hand, it's clearly exploitively. I mean, we know that in theory, let's choose an alternate universe. Let me just alternate universe just happens. Bill happens to just have 10-9 on this hand. Brian makes it 40K instead of 50, 35K instead of 50. Bill calls him with the ace king because, hey, ace king's a good bluff catcher or whatever. Now Brian looks really smart. He looks really smart. Got the max value from the businessman, right? So what he's thinking is that was the universe he was picturing, right? When he was deciding in his head, what's he going to do? You know what? Like, I'm going to extract a little value. I'm pretty high up in the range here. I'm going to extract some extra value. Oh, wait, he came over the top. Well, fuck it. This guy has a 5. 100% he has a 5. I've played with these guys all my life. I'm going to exploit this guy by folding. Now, I don't know what the solver says about whether you're supposed to call with kings here. I have no idea. I'm not even pretending to know. But I don't think he was thinking about that too.
I think solver folds kings on this line.
Solver folds kings? Okay.
I think so. I mean, I didn't run it, but I would guesstimate that because your value raise is supposed to be constructed with like a 5, pocket tens, and ace.
That makes sense.
Fold some stuff. Like what is the worst value hand you're going to raise there? Probably the one you have. So if
it might even be a thing where solver folds kings but calls with ace 10 or something weird like that too, because you're blocking a 10.
Right.
So you always, when we talk about GTO versus theory, it's like, yes, theory. GTO versus exploiting. Exploiting will always make you more money if you do it right. But the problem is, you can get yourself in trouble. If you think you're better at exploiting the other person, and it turns out the other person is better at exploiting you, as Bill was better here. Bill thought, no way in a million years is Brian going to think the old businessman, the old guy is going to 3-bet rip it with ace king. And he was right, and Brian was wrong. And so that's the line, every time we talk about GTO versus exploiting on this show, like, think about this hand and think about, yes, exploiting will make you more money if you can do it better. If you're like Daniel and you've been doing this for 25 years and you kind of have a good sense of the things people are doing, but it can go very wrong for you very quickly if you make some mistake, if you make some assumptions that turn out to be false, basically. And the assumption that Brian made,
leveling war. Leveling war.
Exactly. The assumption that Brian made is this old guy is never 3-betting me without a 5. That assumption was dead wrong. And so that's why I think this hand is really fun and really beautiful.
I do too. And it's always interesting to see a hand get played and then people coming with like absolutes. It's never this. It's always this. Like a lot of like amateur players were in the tweets and I'm like, what do you mean? It's like they were even suggesting Bill never has pocket 10s or 5 because he wouldn't check the turn. I'm like, yes, he would. Yeah, he would. Sometimes, like, you should. I know. And I guess the lesson I was trying to explain to this person is try to avoid ever thinking in always and never, because it's rarely correct. There's always room for some weird, goofy shit that you'll see here from Bill Klein. But in general, I think folding to 3-bets on the river as an exploit without the nuts is going to be very good long term. Just in this case, Brian, got owned pretty hard by a guy who pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and then separately, back a few weeks ago, I think it was Berkey who was calling for Hustler Casino Live to shut their stream down, given they had some issues with security, and he was pretty adamant that they should shut down, reset, figure out what's going on, and then reevaluate. But it seems like the poker community, especially if guys like Bill and other guys are comfortable going and playing on the stream, and feel that it's not going to happen again. Lightning's not going to strike twice. They've learned their lesson, etc. And they've kept going, and thank God they have, because we've got some great poker to watch on YouTube and the streams. So I don't know. What did you guys think when Berkey was calling for them to shut down? Terrence, what did you think?
We talked about it a little last week, and it's always easy to say somebody else's business should shut down because of the community's best interest. But there's an argument to be made, and I don't know if it's right, but it's at least worth something to think about. Like, it's probably the safest time to play on Hustler Casino Live would be now. It's sort of like the month after 9/11 was probably the safest time to fly, even though it wasn't terribly convenient to do so. I understand where Berkey's coming from. He's coming for the best interests of the community, but it's so easy to tell somebody else's business to shut down. And as we talked about last week, like, if you got 7 or 8 willing men or women putting up their own money and they feel comfortable playing, and the casino feels like they've got security locked down, and the production staff feels like they're doing their absolute best and they're not compromised, and that any bad acting that may have happened is out of the system now, then this is it. Caveat emptor. But free people can do what free people choose to do. It's not hurting anybody else.
I'll be a little more harsh and say the take is actually pretty out of line, right? It's like, it's nanny state kind of bullshit that I don't like, right? So as you mentioned, it's probably, like Nick and everybody, they talked about all the things they're doing. They started doing the wands. They're trying to update the security. While they don't require a complete shutdown, right? Elevating the security, doing the measures that they can, and also getting willing participants, right? This isn't a case where you're taking like your regular game and forcing people to play on this stream. Like, this is all willing participants who said, you know what? We see what's happening here. We trust it. So the question is, how far do we need to go to like hold these people's hands or protect them? And how much revenue that may cost them. The stream is obviously picking up steam and these sort of things. Like, so it's very easy, as you said, for someone else to suggest someone else's business should shut down. But then the question is, well, who's going to pay my bills? I mean, you could look at sort of somewhat like the COVID situation. We had a lot of difficult spots where, like, a guy owns a barbershop. He's a small business owner, and he's told he's got to shut down. He's like, okay, got it. But like, how the fuck am I going to pay rent? You know what I mean? Like, so it's very easy for us to say, oh, it's best for everyone. But like, I think I'm a big believer in letting people choose for themselves. Obviously, COVID's a more extreme example because you can make the argument for humanity. But as far as the community goes, I don't think anyone is going on that stream unaware of, what happened or whatnot. And the bottom line is nothing did happen that we know of, right? It's a far cry from saying we found cheating happen. We had, like,
if it was on Stones, if somebody went on, if Stones kept running, right?
Yeah. So like there was no, it's almost like, it was similar to actually what happened at the World Series when we had that fake shooting, right? It was traumatic, and I ripped my hand to shreds and people were running and screaming, right? Well, there was no shooting. There was nothing. So they resumed playing the tournament the next day. And a couple of people complained, saying, how could you bring us back? It was traumatic. I'm like, well, the show must go on. And there wasn't actually a shooting. It like, you have to run. You have to, as a business, you have to like continue to operate. And if you feel like it's safe, if you feel like you're doing everything you can, and your customers are fine with it, I don't get how you can tell other people that want to play on a stream that they shouldn't be allowed because you personally don't think it's secure enough. If you don't think it's secure enough, you can talk about it, you can warn people, you cannot play yourself. All those things are totally in bounds. But the idea that you sort of have to take the moral place and say, you must shut down. No, I don't have to shut down, bro. Like, people want to play, let them play.
All right. The other big sort of piece of news that happened this week, not specifically poker related, but Elon Musk, the takeover for Twitter went through, albeit at a higher valuation than I'm sure Elon would have liked. But this, we're all on Twitter. We all, spend some time on it, get things out of it, are frustrated by it, etc. But Elon's come in, and there's been rumors about what's going to happen going forward. There's talk of charging to be a blue check mark for people, which is a strange thing to just kind of think will work. And first off, but we can talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I don't know, Terrence, what are your or Daniel, why don't you start this one? What are your thoughts here, given you have a large following on Twitter? This is going to affect you to some level, and how you go about, and what's going to happen with Twitter now that Elon's going to presumably have get rid of bots and have more free speech, quote unquote free speech on the platform.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I was very curious because I read a lot of takes and everyone's so convinced it's the worst thing in the world. It's the best. Like, I don't know. It seems pretty extreme, right? Because nothing's really changed all that much. So I put out a poll. I asked, do you think user experience for you personally will improve, get worse, or be about the same? 39% said improve, 33% not much will change, and 28% be worse, which is kind of in line with, what I would suspect. What I have seen since the takeover is people like Jason Calacanis, the Twitter integrity guy, like fielding a lot of ideas, really, right? Like an open forum almost, where like if you have really cool ideas, present it to them and improve the experience. Because for me personally, like I found one, specific, this was already in place before Elon, where you can actually choose to limit who can reply to a conversation based on people you follow. And I found in the past, anytime I put anything political, like help poor people, 3 days of just garbage, right? And trolls and all this kind of stuff. And then, you have the bot problem, right? So what I hear Elon saying really is that he really wants to tackle the bot problem. He believes that charging for blue check marks and also sort of like eliminating this sort of class thing where, celebrities and cool people and people that are known get a blue check mark and you peasants don't, like leveling the playing field where if you want to pay. I think he also thinks a byproduct of that is when you charge for accounts that, have amplification, now all of a sudden those bots like shrivel up, right? Because you could essentially, some of these bots are tweeting 800 times an hour. So limiting the number of tweets is one option, maybe say only 10, 20 tweets an hour, but also adding a fee, will no longer make it as worthwhile for them. They would need a lot more funds to, have those troll farms and disinformation spread. Now, I don't think he's a perfect human being, right? I think, that's clear. Like he says some things that are stupid. He retweeted something that's stupid. But overall, when I think of his impact on the world, right? He's a very important figure in terms of like Tesla and SpaceX and thinking about what's best for humanity. And I'm really surprised to see so many people thinking that he's doing this for money. Like that doesn't add up for me, right? If you're going to do something for money, spending $44 billion on Twitter, I would imagine there were better buys. So I'm hopeful, like from what I can see in terms of discussion, like, and how quickly they are acting on some of these, like this whole thing came out right as soon as Elon went out. There was 2,000 accounts that were using the N-word, and they found all of them, de-amplified them to almost zero, and banned all the accounts. So they have the technology to do it, and I think that like being proactive about that, and also standing by the idea that like we want free speech. Anytime we know there's disinformation, like we don't allow it, but not having any sort of political slant in that as well. So I don't know, like I'm hopeful. I think that him taking over, could be a good thing. And the reason it's somewhat poker related is, some people in poker like Liv Bree and Igor, have his ear to a certain degree. And I think he's got a good group of smart people around him. And I'm surprised at a little bit of the vitriol of the person. And like, I get it, because when you don't know someone personally, you just hear one thing they say, oh, he's evil, he's this, he's that. Like, are you sure about that? Like, humans are complicated. There's good and bad to everybody. So I don't know. Maybe you guys have a totally different opinion.
Terrence, what do you think?
I'll preface this by saying that technology in the future is very hard to predict. And if every sort of public figure and every expert had to put up $1,000 on every prediction that they ever made about technology for the last 30 years, and there was like a 10% rake taken on this, we would have you could buy every fucking island on planet Earth with the 10% rake from all those predictions, because people are very bad at making predictions. And so I voted on Daniel's poll. I said not much will change, but the only reason that I voted that was because I don't know was not an option. And I think I don't know is a very strong favorite to be one that voted for. I do think Daniel made a lot of relevant points. I want to read a quote from Dan O'Brien that I think very much summarizes how I feel about Elon. And it sounds like it's similar to what Daniel said, but Dan O'Brien at Dan O'Brien Poker wrote, Elon is a nuanced figure who exemplifies the best of America, and in brackets, immigrant, entrepreneur, risking everything, building world-changing tech. And the worst: celebrity worship, law skirting, pretending to understand crypto, cave rescue. Anyone 100% for or against Elon is a clown. And I think that's very true. Like there's no doubt in my mind, Elon has done a lot of very good things for the world, will probably do a lot of things for the world, and he'll probably do some shitty things too along the way. Daniel pointed out that buying Twitter for 44 billion is likely not a super plus EV play unless he has an alternative goal. And now a lot of people in the left-wing media are arguing, oh, that goal is to sort of control the medium and sort of allow radicalized hate speech. And people are pulling up examples of Elon tweeting conspiracy theories about the Pelosi attack and all of this sort of stuff. And so there are reasons to be concerned. What going forward, whether to get sort of more back to Adam's point. So again, that's a long way of saying that I don't know whether Elon's control of Twitter is in the long run going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't even have like a strong ability to put a percentage thing on it, like the way I would with the Robbie and Garrett thing. But more to Adam's point about the $8 a month for the blue check mark and the verification. It might be a useful business model, might be a useful business decision. He's paid a lot of money for this thing. The sort of path that we've started to see is, we've seen this on YouTube and we've seen this on Twitch, is that content creators get paid. And Twitter is one of those spheres where content creators do not get paid. It doesn't matter how many Twitter followers you have. You do not get paid directly by Twitter. You have to sell some product. You have to say like, hey, I endorse this bottle of whiskey or online gaming site or whatever it is. And that's the only way you can really get paid. Or you can say, subscribe to my Substack and pay me that way. It'll be interesting to see whether there's some sort of content creation model for this. And that $8 a month, the content creators, if they're able to monetize in some further way, they could end up getting that investment back and more. So it seems like that's pretty much the way that it's going.
Yeah. Jason Kalkanis, I believe, put out a poll saying, would you pay $5, $8, $10, $20? Like, what would you pay? And 82% of the people, and there's over 1 million votes, said they wouldn't pay a penny. They wouldn't pay anything, right?
82% of people don't do much.
Yeah. I do think that Elon is like, his conversion idea of like 100% is way off. Like, I mean, you're going to have 1%. You're going to have very few people. I think the percentage of people that are going to actually pay for this is limited. I do appreciate part of what he wants to do with like the reason for it, like generate revenue this way so that you can support content creators who help, promote Twitter and at the same time alleviate the number of ads you get. Right. So I think his like idea, has a noble purpose, but I don't think it's actually can work because simply you're not going to get like people today. And this is something we talked about, with online poker and with other people have so many opportunities to spend their entertainment dollars, whether it's Netflix or, this streaming service or video games or movies or whatever, that people don't have as much disposable income and they have to pick and choose now. And I don't imagine, enough people are going to be willing to pay extra to have a slightly better Twitter experience or to be, to be uphill. But again, this is just an idea that's thrown out, but I imagine that he's going to vet it, right? Because I saw Elon tweet at it when Jason put that poll up, 82%, he said, interesting. So like, they're actually out there, like trying to figure out what works. And when people spitball and brainwash and they do it publicly like this, I kind of think it's a cool, look behind the curtain and be like, wow, we're sort of in the room here, right? They're, throwing ideas on the wall. Let's see what sticks. Let's see what works. I don't think that idea works. But I don't know. Maybe there's something else to it.
I don't think it'll work either. I agree with you. Well, I'm obviously could be wrong, but
who of us would pay to have a blue check mark?
Daniel would, of course.
I will pay for sure.
Yeah.
I paid like $4 a month not to like deal with any ads or any of the stupid headlines. Like they tell me about like these like pop stars and what dress that they wore on some award show, and like if I could X that out of my life forever, I would probably pay some amount for that.
Yeah.
So like better customize my feed, but
like even if the Twitter had an option where you could like automatically mute any anonymous accounts, like that alone is worth $10 a month.
Well, but the problem there is that a lot of the people who aren't going to pay are the ones that you would want to read, right? And so they're going to be the ones that you don't see anymore.
Well, I'm not saying not pay. I'm not saying they have to be blue check mark. I'm talking about a sidebar thing, not people that are verified, but like just accounts that are not associated with human beings, right? Yes. Like, random accounts where there's like not a clear, like, because Twitter could essentially create the model where not Twitter blue, but like, you know, just, you know, having a specific human being attached to each account.
Yeah, you have to submit your ID, like the way that you do with like a crypto website. You have to submit your ID and say, "Here's my driver's license." That's theoretically possible. It's unlikely, but it's possible.
Right. But I mean, that would be like, because I found like the noise on Twitter, like obviously part of it is, I think it's destructive to our brains, all of us, especially younger people who are getting this constant like feedback loop, and it's too much and it's negative or whatever. And like finding ways to like limit it. Like for me already, I feel like, not that I have any issues with mental health, but like just not like putting out something like not even all that controversial, but not seeing all the replies of like insanity and kooks feels so much cleaner. I think I used to text
Adam and say, anytime I would use to text Adam and say, I have to stop when Daniel tweets, I have to stop clicking on it, because every time I click on something that Daniel tweets, like I hate the world a little bit more. Yeah. Because you have such a cross section of followers that is just like, okay, maybe like the first 3 comments are from people that I realize, and they made me think of something I didn't think of before. And then it's just a fucking cesspit of just horror. And I regret every time. Like it's just absolute regret every time I click on something.
And what does that do to somebody like Daniel who wants to tweet, right? So Daniel, or fill in the blank, somebody who has a lot of followers, who wants to get a thought out to, to the world or to his followers. And then all of a sudden it's just shit for like.
Well, you can do 2 things. One of the other things you can do, by the way, and this is what I was doing before, was I'd put out the tweet, right? And then I would mute the conversation, right? Yeah. So I'd say something controversial and then I would just mute the whole conversation so I don't see any. But then the problem with that is, then I don't see some from guys like you. Like if you tweeted something or Terrence tweeted something, I wouldn't see it. So this way, just basically people in my circle. And there's also another option you can do, Twitter circles, where you can put out a tweet where, and I've done this, I have like 20 people on it, where I can tweet at people that are friends with mine, but I know that if I tweeted it publicly, like I'd get shit on. So I just leave it for my circle. So there's I think there's a lot of innovative ideas. Anytime you try to pay, you're going to eliminate a huge percentage of people that are willing to do that. But I imagine Twitter will always be free to use. Just the question is, how much will it affect the user experience of those people that don't want to pay a penny, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine like maybe they just get inundated with more ads. I don't know.
All right, that's going to take us to an hour, boys. That was awesome. Daniel, you're off to Rozvadov on Friday. Going to get there in time for the Colossus, the 550 buy-in Colossus.
Well, not playing the Colossus. I think that my first event will be the 5K PLO.
All right, enjoy, safe travels, have fun, win a bunch of money. The rest of us will be waiting here. If you take the equipment, and we can squeeze a pod in at some point, because you're not vlogging, so maybe you want to squeeze.
You want to see the exciting nightlife and culinary tours that Rozvadov has to offer.
You liked the food last time. I think you're looking forward to that.
They take care of me with the food. That's fine. I just someone said Leon picked out your room. I'm like, okay, don't give me that VIP fucking floor. I want just away from the smokers. But no, I'm actually looking forward to just grinding. It's again, it's not a vacation. It's a work trip, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Good luck, and we will pod shortly. Thanks to you out there for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.